Hey, all right, welcome back to Raff's Brain, a show about things that are interesting to me. I am your host, Rob Raffety. Thanks so much for tuning in. To all of my tens of loyal listeners, the brainiacs across the land, I'm so grateful for your time and your interest. Thanks for being here. It's time for another episode of everybody's favorite, Walk and Talk. Yes, this is the stream of content for the Raff's Brain podcast, in case this is your first time visiting, where I wander aimlessly around my backyard and record thoughts like a lunatic on a selfie stick. Yes, that's what I do for fun and pleasure. Just roll with it, folks. It's going to be a good time. However, I will tell you this. Today's episode is very special because unlike past episodes of Walk and Talk where I may have more or less a framework and I just kind of roll with it, today I have a little bit more structure. I have prepared some notes. Can you hear these notes? If you're on the podcast, you can hear the crinkling paper. If you're on YouTube, you can see the notes. I physically wrote up some things I definitely want to hit on because I have a very special episode today about my recent experience at the 2025 Sundance Film Festival. Yes, my friends, I was out recently, last week, in Park City, Utah, for one of the world's most remarkable creative festivals. So I got to talk about it. It's my first time out there as someone who's been making short films and videos and digital content of various kinds for better part of 2 decades now. This was like a dream come true, and I just really had a blast. So first off, I want to acknowledge the hosts that invited me to join them out there at the festival. The Moving Picture Institute, thempi.org. If you're not familiar, please go check them out. This is a remarkable organization all about promoting freedom in film. They have a production wing, they have a talent incubation wing, all sorts of opportunities to submit ideas and content for development, refinement, improvement. It's just a really great outfit. And man, I got to meet some of the other fellows in this network. I think it's hundreds and hundreds of screenwriters and storytellers and filmmakers and editors and animators. They have a network that's growing about people who have a passion for communicating ideas of human freedom through the medium of film. So kudos to MPI for the invitation. Thank you. I'm so honored to be a part of your community. So what are we going to do? We're going to walk outside. We're going to enjoy the brisk air. Let's just get a quick temperature check. Alexa, what's the temperature outside right now? Give me a heads up.
Right now, it's 36 degrees Fahrenheit.
36
Tonight,
degrees.
Expect a low of 31 degrees.
Tonight, 31. So like right above freezing, right at the freezing air. It's not that bad, folks. Come on, toughen up. If you think that's bad, you don't know what you're talking about. I went to grad school in Syracuse, man. That's like a sultry spring day. Good times. All right. I want to point out to those on the YouTube channel, I got my MPI Original Films scarf on, so that'll be a nice, that should help keep me warm. I got my Bose headphones on. I got my MPI Official Films hat, Original Films hat, that is. And I got my notes for the show. So let's get outside into the frozen tundra of North Arlington. Hoth-like conditions if you're weak and you have no conception of what Hoth is like. It's not bad at all out here, man. I'm probably going to strip down to my underwear here for the walk as I get heated up. All right. So where do we want to begin? Man, let's begin at the beginning. How's that? It's not going to be one of those techniques where you begin a story at the end and then the whole movie is a flashback. I like that as a storytelling device, but that's not how you do the podcast today, okay? We're going to begin at the beginning, and then we're just going to go every day of the week. I'll tell you what happened. Highlights, lessons learned, key moments of inflection and excitement and memory, and we'll just wrap it up and talk about where I'm going from here. All right, so is my watch on? I'm getting these steps, baby. I got to be getting these steps. I need the steps. Do not. Damn it. Okay. Steps are in effect. Steps in Effect. Remember that band Rex in Effect? Rex in Effect. I got to look that up. I have not heard of that in decades. It's funny how these things just pop into your brain. Zoom, 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 zoom. I can't believe it. All I want to do is do a zoom, 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 and a boom, boom. Rex in Effect. What else? Oh my gosh, where are they now? Let's do a documentary on that. MTV. All right. So day one, a week ago, I'm flying out to Salt Lake City. DCA to SLC. You ever done that trip? I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of flight. I mean, I appreciate it as a technology. I love the Wright brothers, the story of innovation and risk-taking and like part of the American dream. I dig it big time, hardcore. But the actual act of flying to me is not something I ever look forward to, even though I appreciate the miracle of travel like that. It's crazy. If you could go back a couple hundred years, not even that long ago, really, and tell people like, what are you doing today, Raffety? Well, I'm going to step in this giant metal tube, and in about 5 hours, I'm going to be over in Salt Lake City, Utah. They just wouldn't believe it's even conceivable or possible. I have a friend who once commented, and I just think it's correct. He's like, this is really the equivalent of time travel. Anytime you step into a flight, most of humans that have ever existed on planet Earth would think about that experience and say, this is tantamount to time travel. You have no appreciation for it. So stop complaining about it. Obviously, Louis C.K. has that famous bit where he talks about, you know, people shouldn't complain about the challenges of the Wi-Fi and things like that. Totally in agreement with that, 100%. Appreciate what you're experiencing. Nevertheless, it's terrifying when you hit a little bit of turbulence. Hit a little bit of turbulence, man. It's no fun. You just start to have all these questions. Man, I should have driven. I could take a couple days off from work. I could just have a cross-country road trip. I could stop and see some friends. Obviously, statistically, that's a very bad idea. Financially, it's a terrible idea. It costs a lot more. It's like, but you start having those, you know, crazy thoughts whirling through your brain. At least I do. Raff's brain does, as we might say. But anyway, it was a great flight out. I have to give a high five to my friends at Delta Airlines. Wow, direct flight. I gotta tell you something, man. I have a strategy when I fly. I'm very particular. I'm sure everybody has their own tastes and preferences in terms of seats and costs and locations on the plane. I did my research on all this stuff, and I just gotta be in the exit row, man. Anytime it's possible, I want to be in an exit row by the window, right by the handle, man. So it's like, that's my ripcord. If the S hits the F, I'm out. It's so absurd. It's so absurd. You got to know it's absurd. It's not, you know, anything bad happens, you're done. But I have read that, you know, as an emotional crutch, it's not a bad thing to find that. What is that thing about, you know, the location on the plane that could make you feel a little bit more comfortable during the journey? I mean, first class is great, but I've heard that more people survive crashes if they're in the very, very far back. So I used to have a strategy of always wanting to sit in the very back row. But if you do that, you can't lean the seat back. That's crazy. You're also by the toilets back there, and it takes a long time to disembark. So I kind of graduated from that philosophy. I figured I would sacrifice a little bit of my statistical likelihood of survival to move up in the plane about halfway. The exit row seems like a great place. Plus, I'm a Boy Scout. I like to help people. Courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. That's the motto. It's like, yes, be prepared to help in case something happens. I trust myself more than I trust other people to help, you know, folks get off. And so anyway, I have that fantasy. If things went bad, would I be able to step up and actually follow through, yank the handle, get that inflatable slide out there, slip and slide, and, you know, make it to safety. I think I'd be good in that situation. You never know until you're in it, so who knows? Hopefully it'll never happen. Bottom line is, I was in the seat of choice, and then something else happened. It was just out. you know you're going to have a great trip. And this is completely beyond your control. But you know what I'm talking about. If you do any amount of flying, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Especially if you're always going to choose, unless you're like a last minute flyer or some emergency where you just had to take whatever seat was available, you're always going to choose either a window or an aisle seat. Now, people have certain preferences on that, and that's fine. I like the window. Some people like the aisle. You know, some people want easier access to the bathroom. Other people like to not be bothered, hunker down. You have something to lean your head on to sleep. There's definitely pros to either the aisle or the window. And the thing that you need to remember is it's okay to be an aisle or a window guy or gal. No judgment. You do you. No one wants that middle seat. The B seat, as they call it, derogatorily, appropriately. No one wants that middle seat. But some people have to take the middle seat because they booked the travel too late, or they got bumped, or they missed their first flight, whatever. There's the whole zillion reasons why someone might be in that B seat, you know? Well, here's what happens for the window guy. You usually go on earlier. They put you in the window, you're sitting there, you're waiting. Then, within 5 to 10 minutes, the aisle guy in your row plops down. Boom! He's a big dude, kind of like me, you know? I'm not like huge, but I'm definitely a little more hefty, right? Hefty than normal. So I'm taking up some room, and this guy's taking up some room. I'm like, oh man, if there's someone in the middle, I hope they're not too hefty. The problem is when you're in the exit row, that attracts the heftier dudes because we want more room. We think like, oh yeah, you get a little bit more leg room, you know? So by nature, it's not going to attract like a tiny person necessarily. So this is where it gets fun though, and you all know what I'm talking about. Either the aisle or the window, you got that empty middle seat. And it's like this ticking clock as one after another, the fellow passengers continue to pass by. And you see them lined up and they're coming down the aisle. And you pretend not to you don't want to pay too much attention. You don't want to stare them down. You don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. But you're definitely kind of looking up to see, are those people eyeing this middle seat? Are they looking up at the cabin to see if they could, place their roller bag up there and that sort of thing? You kind of get a sense. And most of the time, these days in particular, given all the technological efficiencies and such, in my experience at least, flights are full. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've not been on a full flight. It's like they always say, to me it's like the worst 5 words. Is it 5 words? We're expecting a full flight. Those are the worst 5 words in the English language. We're expecting a full flight. Is that 5 words? We're expecting a full flight. Well, if we're is 1 word, we are would be 2 words, 6 words, I guess, if you don't count contractions. Oh man, we're expecting a full flight. Now they didn't say that, so that gave me a little bit of hope. I was like, maybe there's no one in the middle seat. That would be so weird. The exit rows are usually very popular because they have extra leg room, but they do cost a little bit more now. So are people just more stingy these days? I don't know. Bottom line is, one after another, these people keep walking past us on the aisle. And they keep going by and go. And then finally it gets to the point where there's no one coming down the aisle. Then you hear that suction sound. The door has been sealed. The pilots announced this. They're like, we're all packed in now. Everyone's here. And it's like this elation. And you have a simultaneous euphoric moment of kinship with your aisle mate. Dude, I got fist bumped and high-fived the dude on the aisle seat. And immediately we start taking advantage of this property, this like open space that lies before us, virgin territory waiting for us to just go in there and claim it. It was amazing. I threw my jacket in the seat. This dude, once we got flying, he flipped. He didn't even ask me, by the way. I respect this. This guy like seizes property. This guy's like, hey man, free range. I'm going to grab it. I'm taking it. This is like the American way, baby. He's like, he just flipped down the middle, what's that called? The food tray. He just flipped it down and put a laptop on it, Then he had another laptop on. He had 2 laptops cooking, like an iPad and a laptop, and he had his cell phone on a kickstand. So he had like 3 screens, plus the 2 screens of the TVs on the back seat, of the middle seat and his seat. This dude he was rocking 5 channels of content. I don't know if he was a day trader. I don't know if he was like a crypto head. I don't know if he was like, had a serious raging sports gambling addiction. He was like running for the parlays during the AFC Championship game. I don't know what was going on. This guy was really intense. He was getting things done. I love to see it. It was very inspiring. Even as I was just sitting there watching the Buffalo Bills, man. I was rooting for the Bills. I was wishing they could pull it off. It looked so promising. But it wasn't to be. Anyway, what I'm saying is, it was about like a 4.5 hour, 5 flight, something like that. But it went by in a snap. Really very little turbulence. A couple times, but not much at all. And that was just a great way to start this experience. We land in Salt Lake City. Now, I've never been to Utah. I've never been to Salt Lake City. So this is all firsts for me. But immediately, I'll be very candid with you. First of all, that airport, goodness, it's a beautiful airport. It's very bright. It's very clean. It's like a hospital on the inside. It's so sanitary. It's like people have been wiping it down with Clorox for 3 days before you arrive. It's all glossy and glary and shiny. Wow, it's like the Emerald City, man. I dig it. I was very impressed right off the bat. Step outside, and immediately, I'm not joking, man, immediately, I'm starting to run out of breath. I'm like, I noticed this air is thin. Now, I've been to higher altitude places before. I've been to Denver, Colorado. I had no effect when I went there, no problems there. I've been out to Seattle, Washington. Is that high elevation? I don't know. This was different, man. This hit different. Salt Lake City hit different. That altitude, man. That altitude sickness, it's no joke. Now, my hosts at MPI, they did say, hey, you should really consider drinking a ton of water the week before you come out here. It's going to help you adapt to the altitude. I was like, I kind of blew that off a little bit. It was good advice. In retrospect, I should have done that. But I think this is my first failure, my first weakness, my first flaw, the fatal decision to not be fully prepared for that altitude. And when it kicks, man, it kicks. Whew. All week, I'd go like 20, 30 yards, start gasping for air. What is going on? And I'm not like out of shape terribly. I don't know, man. My lungs weren't feeling it. So that hit me immediately. Got in the Uber. It's about 30, 45 minutes to Park City, Utah, and I can't see anything because it's dark at night, so I didn't get to observe the natural beauty of Utah, but I could imagine it, And we're driving, and I could kind of see just little faint outlines of the mountains by moonlight. Man, I was like, I can't wait to see this place in the morning. I bet it's awesome. So I was staying in the Best Western. How many great stories in life start with that sentence? So I was staying at a Best Western. Listen, man, this was maybe I know what you're thinking, first of all. It's probably what I was thinking. Best Western, is a reliable brand for hotels, right? I mean, it's in there. It's a staple. It's known quantity. It's like a Holiday Inn. It's like a Hojo. But I don't know the last time I stayed at the Best Western. And I wasn't sure what to expect. But I gotta give you something. I gotta tell you something right now. The Park City, Utah, it's like right outside Park City, maybe like 10 miles, 15 miles. That Best Western is probably the best Western. It's the best Western. It's the bestest. It's the best Western in Texas. It's the best It's the best Western in America. That's what I'm talking about. No joke, man. It's like a resort. It's like a conference center. swimming pool, sauna, none of which I was able to use because I didn't bring my swimming trunks, man. I didn't have time for recreation. This was time for education. Oh, goodness. So I wasn't able to avail myself of a lot of the amenities of this hotel, but it was very nice. I'll give you that. And then if I ever go back to Salt Lake City, that's probably where I'd like to stay again. I was like, dang, this is good. It's like, I mean Park City. It's closer to Park City than Salt Lake City. It's probably like a good, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes, let's say 42 minutes from the airport to the Best Western, then maybe another 10 to 15 minutes into downtown Park City. Just helping you out there with the geography of the situation. All right, so that's all good. Sunday's beautiful. I haven't even talked about the festival yet. This is hilarious. If you're still listening to this, thank you so much. I'm just having a good time recounting the memories. But let's get into the actual substance of what I did there, because you're not here to hear about my travel log. What was that all about? All right. Wake up Monday morning. Well, actually, I woke up at more like 3 in the morning. This is problem 2. So aside from the thin air, I had this real challenge with the time change. Usually I'm pretty good with this, you know. I'll be honest, I've never done mountain time before. I've done West Coast, 3 hours. I've done Central, 1 hour. I've never done mountain until last week. And I'm telling you what, the mountain, it messed with me, dude. It really messed with me in ways that I wasn't expecting. And it challenged me in a manner that I had never experienced before with the time change. It was very frustrating. I was up, like I said, at like 3:30. What is going on? Oh, because it's 5 o'clock your time. This is usually when you wake up to do hot yoga. I get it. My biological clock is not ticking like it usually does. Or actually, it was ticking like it usually does. It didn't appreciate that we were in a different time zone. It just messed me up, man. It messed me up. And I tried to go back to sleep, and I couldn't go back to sleep. It's just like, frustrations. I didn't get a good night's sleep. That's what I'm saying, I guess. So it's off to a rough start on that margin, and it only gets worse from there. These are not critiques of the festival or my hosts in any way, shape, or form. These are critiques of Rob Raffety, okay? I'm just being honest with you. This trip, as you will soon learn, I encountered a lot of unique challenges, many self-induced traumas we will discuss here shortly. So Monday, wake up, beautiful. We have this, the group of MPI fellows has I think it's called Telegram. Actually, I'll be honest with you, I don't know these tools. I'm so out of it. I know how to text people. I know how to email people. I know how to chat people like on Teams. I know how to send a message on Facebook. But I guess there's like WhatsApp. There's like Signal. There's telemarketing. It was a Signal app, I think, the Signal app. We had a little group on Signal. And I was able to connect with a fellow filmmaker on Monday morning to hit up day 1 of our experience. But this gentleman's name is Chris McElroy. Chris is awesome, and I actually had a chance to interview Chris. So teaser, a future episode of Raff's Brain, Riffing with Raff, will be about a 20-minute conversation I had with Chris. He's a great dude, lives out in Los Angeles. He's worked on some legit projects, including Hellboy and Tenet. He was involved very intimately with the ESPN series Banana Land, I think it was called. It's all about the Savannah Bananas, minor league baseball, very exciting stuff. The guy's really, really talented. Great to be around. We hit it off, man. I think we were 2 peas in a pod there, talking, smack, talking cinema, talking art, talking shop. And we went to the opening of the opening morning. It's not really the full opening, the grand opening, but it was an event there that is called the Windrider Conference. Now, the Windrider Conference is happening sort of parallel to the Sundance Film Festival. It was pretty sizable, man, hundreds of participants. Windrider is a separate organization, but they've been doing this, I don't know, 20 some years, bringing out filmmakers who are, I think, broadly interested in storytelling on themes of faith, morality, values, those sorts of eternal questions that can be engaged in film for in deep ways, right? So that was the vibe. Definitely like really, really impressive lineup of talent. They had screenings, they had panel discussions. We were there and it opened up with 2 short films and then followed by conversations with the filmmakers. The first film we saw, short film, was called Ebb and Flow. Ebb and Flow. It's a period piece in the most recent period. You say period piece, I think that was like from the early or mid 2000s maybe. I think that was it. I got to look that up again to remind myself. It was definitely not super far back because there was a cell phone, but it was like a flip phone. It wasn't like the Blackberries and Crackberries and stuff. It was more like, I think, mid 2000 time frame. Maybe actually the teens, early like 2011, something like that. Bottom line is, it's a coming of age story, but it's in Beirut, Lebanon. So it's like a coming of age story about a girl and her first kiss, but it's all with the backdrop of the conflict and tension that's happening in that part of the world. And that's interesting to juxtapose those two things, right? And so it was a really well done, moving piece, where you're kind of at different times anxious for the protagonist, both for her social experience that she's, apparently going to kiss this boy, but also because of the kind of very real threats that are transpiring. I don't want to ruin it, but there's some, military activity there that occurs that kind of throws the day into a chaos. Anyway, good little short film, and that was fun to hear from. That was the first. That's our introduction to this whole universe. So I was like, wow, what a way to go! Good, off to a great start. And then there was another short film that was screened after that. I want to make sure I get this right. I have to look at my notes real quick because there was a third short film that we watched the next day, but I don't want to mention that one. What's the second short film that we watched? Oh, dude, this was really good. It's a short documentary called Tiger. Tiger was about the Tiger T-shirt company. Tiger was actually in the Sundance Film Festival. I'm not sure if Ebb and Flow was in Sundance or not. It might have been. I should double check that. Tiger was for show. And this was a cool little documentary about Dana Tiger, who was a really prominent, well-known indigenous artist who has suffered some very tragic experiences in her life, and she was basically the narrating and telling a story of her upbringing and childhood and memories around the establishment and evolution of the Tiger T-shirt company. Now, if you Googled that, you might see some designs, especially if you're from Gen X era like I am. You might remember some of these classic kind of Native American or indigenous themed T-shirts from the 90s that were very popular and now have regained popularity and resurgence because I think of interest in that time period, interest in the artists involved in those printed T-shirts. So it was a really cool story. Now, aside from the story, which in and of itself is kind of neat and compelling and uplifting, I would argue. What was also cool about it was the cinematography. I've never seen a documentary quite this fast-paced, quite this artistic in its production. It's funny, I'm walking around here outside in my backyard by our swimming pool, which is covered at the moment because it's still winter. We'll be letting this off probably around April or so. But in Tiger, this is pretty cool, man. Like visually, Dana, the main character, for a lot of the film was laying on a diving board on her back, looking up to the sky and talking, both down at the camera and then also a profile shot, and it went back and forth like that. Very creative, very artistic, and the music was very poignant and tribal music. And the Q&A, they got into some of those aspects of it as well. It was really, really well done and pretty impressive. And I believe the people who were involved in making that, a woman and man partners, I think they said they were partners, also involved in a TV show that I haven't checked out, but I've heard great things about, called, hang on, Reservoir Dogs, right? No, Reservation Dogs. It's a play on Reservoir Dogs by Quentin Tarantino. Reservation Dogs, which I don't know anything about. I've seen like the top line description of it. It's like coming of age, some teenage kids on a Native American Indian reservation. I don't know much beyond that, but I want to check it out now because I saw this artist's documentary. So good first day of content there in the morning. Enjoyed that experience very much. And then that evening, we had our first gathering with the MPI fellows as a group, and went to a very, I would say, iconic location in Park City, Utah. Folks have been to that neck of the woods, you're going to know this particular venue. It's called Nelson Cottage. Nelson Cottage. It's a cool place because they also have, I don't know if they do the distilling there, but they have an association with like whiskey. So it was kind of like a luncheon and whiskey mix. We got to do like whiskey tasting with different foods, and I actually learned in this experience like how to taste whiskey. It's not like wine. You don't like swirl it around, and so it was very interesting. I learned something in that for sure. And I got to meet a bunch of really cool people who are at Sundance that have some sort of relationship or friendship or affinity for MPI. So aside from the small group of fellows and some of the MPI staff on hand, there might have been like, I don't know, 40 different partners, different supporters. A really great time, really cool experience meeting those folks. And again, that's one of the greatest assets that MPI has going for it. It's their creative network. It's just remarkable. So that was really cool. It was cold outside, dude. We had some drinks. We were mostly inside, but then we had some drinks afterwards. During the luncheon itself, I have to mention, though, something really cool. I got to sit at the same table as Melanie Armstrong and her husband, Kevin Armstrong. Melanie is a remarkable person, an entrepreneur who is the subject of an MPI original film called Freedom Hair. And the next day, that film and Melanie were honored by the film festival. I'll get you the name of the award. It's called the 2025 Amplify Award. You know, it was all about resilience and transformation as a key component of the story. She's the woman, if you've paid any attention to some of the legal battles over, and essentially like economic rights in this country. This is one small example of an egregious form of barrier that is put up in some places that really prevents people from flexing their talents, their gifts for the benefit of society. And that's this broad realm of occupational licensing. But Melanie had the courage to fight the system with the help of an organization called Institute for Justice, IJ, a remarkable outfit. They were able to empower her and others so they wouldn't have to do thousands of hours of unnecessary training and such, which would impose immense burdens on them. To do just, they want to braid hair. Freedom hair. It's just like, it's symbolic of the freedom to work, the freedom to, pursue entrepreneurship unimpeded by unnecessary cartelization, right? There was like a whole cosmetology board that's trying to set up all these rules and barriers and costs and fees and expenses that are having a disproportionate impact on a very specific population, African hair braiding, which is a very unique form of cosmetology. It's not like getting a haircut or getting a shave, So like, why should someone who's getting those, providing those types of services need to subject themselves to the expenses of what some would say are just competitors who are trying to make it harder for anybody to get in the market and provide good services to their community. So it's a great story. Highly recommend it. It's screened on BET. It's been all over. I mean, it's like so many festivals, accolades. This is the latest, only the latest win for this film and for MPI. But the point was, I got to meet Melanie and Kevin, her husband. He's a great dude. Wow. Super talkative, super friendly, super passionate about human freedom. And obviously he's been a big supporter of Melanie. And that's just cool to see. So that was a fun afternoon there on Monday. It was like more like the early evening. Afterwards, the fellows went out, grabbed a quick drink, and we got to talk and meet. And that was a lot of fun, too. Again, I think one of the most valuable aspects of the MPI affiliation is just the network and getting to meet and connect with like-minded, creative people. So we got to share, a little bit about our favorite films of the year, things like that. It's also fun just to hear the different takes that people have on all these movies. Some people are very, very opinionated. I'm not so opinionated, man. I'm pretty easygoing. I think it's mostly because I just think I want to respect anybody that makes art. Any film that comes to completion, regardless of what you think about it, regardless of whether or not it's quote-unquote good in a subjective sense. I mean, just the fact that someone had the courage to put the idea out there and share it with the world, I cannot summon criticism for that. I might say it didn't land with me. I didn't like it, or it didn't work for me. But that's the most I'll ever say negative about something. I have opinions. I mean, I don't like everything. Trust me, I have opinions, but I'm not vehement about them the way some people just oh, I hated that movie. That was terrible. Yeah, I try to be a little more reserved in my judgment. Certainly in my criticism. But the bottom line is, we had a great little happy hour there after the dinner, or whatever it was, early dinner. Yeah, so cool getting to meet these other fellows here about their interests and passions. And I'm going to sit down for a second. Man, I've been walking around a lot. Oh, consult my notes. What happened next? Oh boy, this is fun. Tuesday. We're making progress here. So Tuesday, again, Windrider Festival / conference. More short films. Well, we got to see Melanie get the award. So she won that award that was actually handed out, and she was part of a panel discussion up there. And that was pretty cool, hearing a little bit more of the background context of her story, seeing her recognized, and MPI as the production company responsible for Freedom Hair. That was really cool. And then, oh man, this is wild. This short film, I'm going to drop the link in the show notes. I really encourage folks to check it out. It's a short film called Gruff. Gruff, Gruff. The production company is called Ruthless Robot. I think that's what it's called. No, righteous robot. Sorry. Ruthless robot. That's a little too negative. Righteous is more positive. Righteous robot. It's the mastermind of this genius dude. This guy's unbelievably brilliant as a creative storyteller and producer of content. Julian Curry, Julincuri. I'll drop a link to his YouTube channel in the show notes. You've got to check it out because this guy is the real deal. Gruff is so unique. You can only understand it when you watch it. But to describe it, first let's talk about aesthetically. It's a form of puppetry, but it's a kind of completely new form of creative expression because there's no real definition for it. It's not quite stop motion. He explained this during the Q&A. But it involves paper puppetry, manipulating paper characters and scenes and filming them with various lights, lighting, aesthetics and things. Anyway, it has a really cool look. That's all. That's very profound, right? For me to say, it looks really cool. Yes. That's the truth, though. It looked really cool. It's unique. It popped. It's kind of like a cartoon, but not quite as smooth. It has a little bit more depth because of it's actually a physical presence. So I don't know, man. He explained this as a lot of stuff that he developed. He's had a passion for art and drawing and that sort of thing, but he developed his style really during the COVID era, had a lot of time there, started a YouTube channel. I think he got a Kickstarter or one of those platforms, and he was able to raise funding to make this. Took him like 3 years. Painstaking, trial and error. Gosh, this guy's story was so inspiring. I love these stories, and he had such a great message, man. He was so good in the Q&A. He was saying, like, don't wait for perfection. You just got to go. You got to make the art and go. And even as he watches it now, it's comical. I love this. You know the dude's legit when he says, I sit here and I watch it and I cringe at parts. I watch it. I don't like certain parts of it. But you know what? It's out there and it's succeeded and it's beyond his wildest imagination. He's like got millions of views and all sorts of supporters now. And I think he's really just going to be on the launch pad, dude. These guys' trajectory is going to just go through the moon. I love it. I love seeing it. It's so inspiring. And he all did it by himself. I mean, that's what's even more remarkable. So it just got me thinking, dude, if I had unlimited resources, I'm like, this is a type of style of animation. It's not even animation. I don't even know how to, it's like such a unique style and aesthetic. Imagine if he had his whole studio funded to do this type of content. I would watch feature-length films in this style of content. And I think this guy, he's making more stuff, and this one was particularly moving. I mean, I didn't even get into the story. A great story. It's about a relationship between a woman and her father. It's kind of not always communicative at times. And then, of course, they have the woman's daughters involved. So it's grandpa, daughter, and granddaughter. And how you navigate relationships with people who aren't so communicative all the time. And it was just a great message, great story, very heart warming and uplifting. I loved it stylistically. I was shocked to hear that it didn't get into the Sundance Film Festival. Because when you see some of the other short films that get into Sundance, you go, what? This is so unique, so different. But, you can't critique those decisions. We don't have full information. And reality is, programming a short film festival of any kind is immensely complicated. Beyond the politics, that's one level. It's also just practically, like, what are you trying to put together and piece together over the course of an hour and a half of shorts? How long is one, what style is it? How does it fit into a group of other shorts? I can't even imagine all the complexity, let alone the fact that they have tens of thousands of entries. It's harder to get into the Sundance Film Festival as a short film than it is to Harvard University. So it's like a crapshoot. Anyway, I love that film. I'm impressed. I can't wait to follow this guy's career. I encourage you to check it out. I'm definitely dropping a link in the show notes. And again, that was an awesome start to Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, things started to go a little awry. Let me explain what happened. I was having a great time at the festival, so you've heard some of the films I've seen, you understand the experience. But that morning, when I got up that morning to go to Windrider for Melanie's award and to watch Gruff, well, I couldn't find my license and some credit cards. I was very confused. Let me back up even one more second. Before I left the hotel room Monday for all those events that I just described, I tried to outsmart myself. And this is, sometimes I make mistakes. Actually, I often make mistakes, let's be honest. I am mistake prone as a human being. I'm riddled with all sorts of poor decisions. But I try not to. I try to be really on top of my stuff, man. I hold myself to a high standard. I hate it when I misplace things or I lose things. I know my weaknesses, and I try to develop systems that will help me prevent those things from happening. Like, basically, I know that I'm forgetful. I know that I'm like kind of a absent-minded professor. So how do I create behaviors or systems that are going to address that and prevent the worst effects? Okay. Well, I don't know why, but I felt like it was a good time to experiment with an approach. So I have a big wallet. I have like a Costanza wallet. I will not apologize for that. I like to keep all sorts of stuff in my wallet. It's very thick and fat, and everything's there for a reason. Okay, it's not like it's just superfluous. Yes, it's a big, thick, fat wallet, but I could tell you everything there has purpose and meaning or sentimental value. Every once in a while, I clean out my wallet. I gotta remove old business cards from people. Who's that? Oh yeah, that person. I forgot to get back to that person. So it's like I do occasionally do a house cleaning with my wallet. Anyway, what I'm getting at is it's a thick wallet, and I had a lot of stuff to carry with me during my time in Park City. I had my sunglasses. I had a scarf. I had 2 phones. I had, I don't know what else, earbuds. I just had stuff. And I was like, how many pockets do I have? Maybe I could consolidate. Maybe I could streamline and take out just like essential items from my wallet. My ID, a credit card, maybe 2 credit cards in case one gets canceled, backup credit card, and your ATM card in case you need some cash. That's 4 items. 4 items. Plus some cash. Guys got to have a little bit of cashola on hand in case something comes up. So I thought this would be a good idea. Now, I don't like to separate my license and credit cards from my thick wallet, because when I make that disassociation, there's a likelihood that they could not come back together. There's something discomforting about that. But there's also a huge upside if you just take 4 items and some cash and fold it together and put it in your pocket. It's just so much more efficient. Oh, I also need also my hotel key. Also the hotel key. Actually, I use that like the little paper folder they use for that's what I put it all in. It's like a little booklet. It's just made for this purpose, isn't it? I cannot be the only person who does this. Anyway, hotel key, 2 credit cards, ID, ATM card. That's 5 items with some cash in the little booklet that they give you with the hotel key. Okay, that's compact. That's efficient. It's very comforting to have that like in your hip pocket. And by the way, I never put my wallet in my back pocket. That's a little habit that my dad, I don't think it's real, but he's like, you got to put your wallet in your front pocket. It's hard to steal it out of your front pocket. Everyone's like, pickpockets come to get you in the back pocket, not the front pocket. They can't get your front pocket. I don't know where I heard this. I'm sure it was my dad. So I always put important things in my front pocket so no one can steal them. Or if they do, at least I feel like a real idiot because they're coming right at you. Okay, where am I going with all this? Tuesday morning, I wake up. I can't find the little booklet, the little key booklet with my cash, with my credit cards, with my ID, with the ATM card. What's going on? For a minute, I was like, I just must have misplaced it. I was like, I look in the pants pockets, I couldn't find it. Oh man. Good news is I have my other credit cards from my thick wallet, right? My thick wallet's doing fine. It's just been sitting there. So I was able to grab a credit card. And I had some cash in the thick wallet left over. So I used some of the cash. Anyway, I'm rolling on with my day, and I'm like, it must be in the room somewhere. It must be in a coat pocket. It must be in a pant pocket. But that was on my mind. It was stressing me out a little bit. Now, why do I make this point? Because that was Tuesday morning that I noticed. But I figured it was there somewhere. It had to be somewhere in the hotel room. Oh, man. Get back Tuesday later in the kind of mid-afternoon, and I'm like, I scour in my room. I can't find it. Where is it? Oh my gosh, my driver's license. I start to panic. Have you ever lost your driver's license? I've never in my life lost my driver's license. I'm very proud, man. I have a real sense of responsibility to those items, man. My wallet, I've never lost my wallet or my driver's license as an adult. Maybe it's happened as a kid, I don't remember, but I'm just really good about it. And so I started to freak out. Then I started to remember, oh man, how am I going to get out of here? How do I get on my airplane? How do I get home? Am I going to be stranded out here? Am I going to get in trouble? Oh, all sorts of like cascading concerns started to pour across my brain. I was so anxious and nervous. And that really kind of threw me off for the next several days because I couldn't find it. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. As it relates to Tuesday, the point is, I just started down this kind of negative mental space. I was very hard on myself. I was very hard on myself. I'm like very disappointed, very angry, very judgmental about my inability to stay on top of things. And it wasn't like I was out partying. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't like raging and drinking and staying up till 3 a.m, going to a techno rave with glow sticks. I was nothing like that. I maybe had 1 or 2 drinks max that night. Totally. I was on top. I just don't know what happened. I do not know what happened. And it's just unacceptable. And I was so mad and hard on myself. And then, of course, also the compounding, thin air. I talked about this earlier. This altitude sickness. That dinner that night, I sang about it. I was just having a good time. I think no one got my illusion. They think I'm an idiot, but we were just talking about different things. I was like, yeah, blame it on the altitude. Yeah. I'm also kind of sick. Can you hear that cough? It's a lingering cough. I came down with something when I was out there. It started hitting me probably around Wednesday morning. Dude, it's like all these cascading things. Altitude sickness. Losing your wallet, or at least your ID. Starting to get sick. Waking up at 3 a.m. every night because your body's messed up and it can't accommodate the mountain time for some reason. What is going on? So I started to deteriorate physically and mentally. It was really kind of a downward spiral for a few days. I did my best to fight it, but I won't deny that it was brutal. Nevertheless, we persevered. Tuesday night was amazing. Had a great dinner at a place called Handle. Extraordinary restaurant. Kudos again to MPI, doing it up. Just creating a space, an opportunity for artists to meet, mix, collaborate, get to know each other. That's so foundational to success. I mean, I already have plans to follow up with so many of these fellow artists. Look for opportunities to work with each other, collaborate, support each other. That's so important, and MPI does that, and it does it so well. During that dinner, it's also kind of cool, like definitely, Sundance is a scene, man. Park City, first of all, as a town, is beautiful. This picturesque, like mountain town. They got lights hanging in the trees and across the street. It's quaint, it's clean, it's like vibrant, it's picturesque. Could I say that? I probably said picturesque like 30 times. I took a lot of pictures. This must be picturesque. No, it was amazing, dude. Beautiful little town. There's a what do you call that? Ski lift. Like right through the heart of town, ski lift. I'm like, people like snowboarding down Main Street. What? It's amazing. And the skiing there is off the chain. Is that something kids still say? I'll be honest, I never really said off the chain. I don't know where that came from right now. I don't typically think of that phrase as one that I would use. But it was great. We used to say off the hook more than off the chain, but the bottom line is, it's just nuts. Park City was beautiful, and had a great time. And it's a scene, and this is where I was going. Come on, rein it back in, Raffety. Rein it back in. There's a lot of dinner parties. There's a lot of social gatherings from different filmmakers, production companies, studios, bigwigs, etc. So MPI is like in the mix. And the people that run MPI are always bouncing around. They have like 3 or 4 different dinner, cocktail hours, this and that. That's awesome, man. They're like so well networked. And that means that some of these other people who know MPI are kind of coming in and crashing our party. And that's not like a crash in a negative sense. That just means they want to go there and meet people. And that's cool. So where I'm getting at is, during our dinner, this Tuesday dinner was very intimate. It was a small group, probably about a dozen of us. But a gentleman came there who's a really impressive producer. Has done some really great work, and has worked with Scorsese on a couple projects, for instance. But he was talking about, he dropped by about kind of like around dessert time, and we chatted for a little bit, and he's all excited about this forthcoming project that he's a big producer on. It's going to be about Reagan and Gorbachev, man. Wow, my eyes lit up. I love that era of history. I lived through it as a young boy and had such admiration for President Reagan and Gorbachev as they negotiated the peace, missile reduction, all that stuff, the end of the Cold War. I mean, it was scary growing up in the 80s. We heard a lot about duck and cover, or the legacy of that. That was more like from the 50s, let's be honest. But still, like the idea of mutually assured destruction, the Warsaw Pact, like there was just like a little bit of fear about the nuclear holocaust could come at any moment. But when that started to thaw, glasnost, all that good stuff. It was just fun being a young boy growing up in that, and then to see the downfall of communism and the sort of peaceful transition there. Although we've had a lot of challenges since. I'm just telling you, if you didn't live through it, you wouldn't know what the world was like as a bipolar state. It was so much different than it is today. Bottom line is, there's a movie coming out in the near future that focuses on that era of history with Reagan and Gorbachev, and I can't wait to see it. And this gentleman was involved in the production of it, and I'm going to have to follow up with him and get more details and maybe help with a DC screening or something like that. I mean, that was just cool. So that was bad. That was awesome. And that's what happened on Tuesday. Oh man, I forgot to... I'm not even getting to the films yet. I saw the first feature movie of my time in Park City at Sundance on Tuesday afternoon, and I loved it. Again, I didn't have my ID or all my credit cards, but I had my app, my Sundance app on the phone, so I was able to get in. And this is a very, very cool feature-length, I would call it almost like a dramedy, but it's very original. It's called Serious People. Filmmakers Pascal Gutierrez and Ben, I can't pronounce the last name, Mullen Casson. I'll drop information in the show notes. These guys are great. They were there. They did Q&A afterwards. Here's the setup. Here's the premise. Modern day story about a guy who's preparing to be a father. The wife's stressing him out, and he's a movie producer, a music video producer in particular. Gets a big opportunity with him and his music video partner to shoot a music video for Drake, who's a big name in the music video business, music industry. And so he gets stressed out, how can he balance these times, obligations between work and between life, and he ends up hiring a doppelganger to sit in for his music video production. And then, of course, all goes awry, and it's a lot of life lessons learned and such. But what made this particularly interesting is that it's actually kind of a semi-autobiographical tale. As they explained during the Q&A, they were playing exaggerated versions of themselves. Pascal was actually a father-to-be, and the woman on camera was his partner who was pregnant with their future child. And so they made that movie in pretty short order, and it really hits, man. It's really good. It's solid. It didn't actually end the way I thought. It wasn't necessarily a happy ending, but it was an appropriate ending. And I just really like the ethos of that, the way they made it, the way they put it together. Scrappy, can do, no nonsense, clever in execution. Oh, and the cinematography, very unique, almost voyeuristic. A lot of still shots, kind of like a mumblecore vibe, where the characters were talking over each other a lot. They'd have like extended 1.5, 2 minute scenes with a static camera shot from a wide distance. It was aesthetically very unique. I loved it. I just really enjoyed it. Maybe the highlight of the festival for me. So yeah, that was fun. I got to see that on Tuesday afternoon before that big dinner I just talked about. All right, let's roll into Wednesday. What's happening on Wednesday? Wednesday was nice. I got to sleep in a little bit, which was tough because I kept struggling with the sleep. Like I couldn't get good, like solid 6-7 hours. I couldn't get that. I was like doing it 3 hours here, 3 hours there. I wake up. I'll say one other thing too. I had this ambition every day. I had an ambition to do hot yoga. I wanted to keep it going. I wanted to record a session of hot yoga problems. There was a hot yoga studio like a half mile away from this hotel. I could have walked there in 20 minutes, 15 minutes. It was freezing cold out, but it could have been done. But my constitution was not permitting it. I would set my alarm with every intention of getting up to go to hot yoga, and it just didn't happen. I was very mad at myself for that too. I was very hard on myself this whole week. I got to lighten up on myself, dude. Regrettably, no hot yoga occurred, but I was really serious about it. I looked into it. I was prepared. But just never manifested. That's on me and no one else. On Wednesday, I had lunch with an old dear friend of mine who's a real extraordinary filmmaker, really storyteller, movie producer, Christy Kendall, Kristi Kendall, KENDALL.com, KristiKendall.com. Check it out. I'm going to drop it in the show notes. She's prolific. Oh, shit. I think the cord came out. We're back in action, maybe. Hey man, that's what happens sometimes. The cords come out. Christy Kendall's prolific. She's been making great works of storytelling about concepts of freedom and individuality, classical liberalism, for all sorts of brand name organizations. If you're in my circles, you know these places like the Cato Institute, American Enterprise Institute. She most recently was involved deeply in a feature-length documentary called Undivide Us. If you look that one up, it's had an extraordinary festival run, super well received, all about, ways we can overcome this insane political division in our country. It seems to be pulling us apart at the seams, This is a really timely film. It's been on the circuit now for maybe over a year, close to it. It's just doing really well. Anyway, I got to catch up with her, which is such a joy. Just to reconnect with an old friend. Our paths have crossed over the years in many ways. And we were able to talk shop a little bit about, talk a little bit about my work, the work that I do as Director of Internal Communications for Stand Together, and how I'm trying to weave and incorporate storytelling themes and lessons, emotional journeys for the staff, and some of the communications that we disseminate. So overall, highly productive, highly valuable time. to connect, to recharge, and reacquaint myself with an old pal in the Liberty movement. The food was great too. It was kind of like this hole-in-the-wall Mexican restaurant, but it was outstanding. Had a blast. I spent a lot of Wednesday on the phone with the Virginia DMV, on the phone with Delta Airlines, like just trying to get things figured out. What types of identification will function for me if I want to get on the airplane on Friday? So I was scheduled to leave Friday morning. It's Wednesday, and I'm already starting to freak out a little bit. I'm like, I cannot find my license. I've lost it. I can't find several credit cards. But I have like other things I could use to prove who I am. I'm telling you what, this is where Delta did fall down. Their customer service on this, they were kind of pointless. I spent like a couple hours trying to get to a human being. I was on hold for a long time. I'm like, listen, man, can you patch me through or help me understand what I need to make it onto the airplane so I can get home on Friday? That's all I want to know. I don't have my driver's license. I don't have my social security card. I don't have other things. I have like some credit cards. I got my AAA card. I got my Mount Vernon Ladies Society membership card. I got, I don't know, what will they deem as an acceptable identification to get on an airplane. And this is the thing. I'm like, well, certainly this has happened to other people before. I'm not an anomaly. I'm not like that off the charts crazy. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people that have lost or misplaced their passport or their driver's license, or lost their whole wallet. Dude, at least I had my wallet. I still had money. I still had credit cards. God, if I had lost my whole wallet, that would have been really challenging for me emotionally. Anyway, I didn't get any good answers. I will say, though, the Virginia DMV, man, they impressed me. They really impressed me. Because basically, Delta, I was on the phone for hours. I couldn't figure it out. They couldn't patch me through to Salt Lake City Delta. I was like, what can I do here? They're like, show up really early and go to TSA and figure it out. I'm like, that's not really very helpful. So that was my plan. I was going to get up and like be there like 3 or 4 hours early. I Googled and did see that this does happen, and there are ways to get through. It just takes a little bit of time to get your identity validated and verified. So I was very prepared for that experience. I wasn't looking forward to it. But I also saw on the internet, hey, you should reach out to your state DMV and request a temporary license, like a authentication document that they can send you, typically within 24 hours. So, that's curious. I went on the DMV website. I couldn't really get it electronically. I had to talk to someone. So I called them up and chatted it out. Had a couple different people. It's one of those things where you cycle through. When you're calling one of those 1-800 numbers, you're not going to get the right person right off the bat. And you got to be respectful. You got to be polite. You got to be nice. And I am. I'm a reasonable guy. By the way, this is my fault. This is all on me. This is no one else's fault but mine. Raffety? Don't get mad at these people. Get mad at yourself. You're the dumb moron that lost your wallet. Whatever. Why'd you even separate? Why'd you separate the ID and the credit cards from the wallet? That's your first mistake, my friend. Never separate. It's like horror movies when people go, I'm going to go check out the shed in the backyard. Okay, I'm going to go check out the basement. No. Do not separate. Stay together. Keep it together. Man, that was funny. So, the Virginia DMV, they were super helpful, dude. They were incredible. They saved my life, in a sense. They certainly put me in a much better mental state, because they first assured me I could get on the plane. All I would need is to work with them to procure a PDF of a kind of temporary identity authorization that they'd be happy to provide for the low cost of $9. That's it, $9. I had to do a couple things, run through some hoops, call a couple different numbers, talk to some some, various people, but they made it happen. I got the email. It was all super secure, blah, blah, blah. And then I had this document I printed out at the business center at the Best Western in the world. And I was ready to go. I had it all printed up. I was ready to go. And for the first time, like basically Wednesday, going into Wednesday evening, I felt pretty good about my situation. I wasn't happy about it, but I was like, at least I have all the authenticating papers and documents. And that was a good place to be. On Wednesday night, Wednesday afternoon, I saw a feature film with Chris, a movie called By Design, featuring Juliette Lewis as a, I would call her sort of middle-aged suburbanite housewife type character who becomes a chair. Oh, that was fun. I just got cut off mid-recording because I'm running out of capacity on this phone. I had to clean it up a little bit. This is a world-class production here at Raff's Brain. Anyway, I have been talking a lot. I think that last video clip was over an hour long. This is gonna set a record for the longest episode of Raff's Brain. Thanks for being here. I had a lot to get out of me. I mean, I haven't made any episodes all week, so cut me some slack. But I think I have a little bit more time here to get back into things, and then we'll wrap it up and get on with it. But I do want to tell you this movie, By Design, Juliette Lewis. It's about a woman who becomes a chair, and her friends and family like her more as a chair. And it sounds crazy, and I can only really say you got to watch it to understand it. And even if you do watch it, you probably won't understand it. Like me, it's a little abstract, a little bit out there, a little bit wild. I respect all art, but that was beyond my comprehension. Although I understand what they're trying to say, like your authentic self versus your true versus revealed self, and do people like you, or do they like the idea of you? That's, I think, some of the themes that the artist was exploring. So I don't know. It's just not really necessarily what I would call my type of movie, but it's okay, man. It was an interesting way to spend an afternoon. And I saw that movie at the Egyptian Theater. The Egyptian Theater, for those of you who don't know, is the iconic location there in downtown Park City, Utah. So it was worth it just to go see it there and realize that I'd finally made it to Sundance. It only took me 49 years. But Sundance hasn't been around for 49 years. I think it started in 1981. So, and it's named, by the way, you know why it's named Sundance? Yes, that's right. The Sundance Kid. I think that was Robert Redford's character. Anyway, good times. He's the founder. It's really cool. It's more than just a festival. It's also a whole institute, all sorts of programming, all sorts of workshops, training. I've applied to a few of their programs in the past. I've made it a few rounds typically, but no, I've never been fully into the Sundance universe yet. Maybe someday. Anyway, By Design, one of the more abstract, and I would say entertaining, but bizarre stories and films there that I saw. After that, I went to the merch table. Man, I tell you what, Sundance has got a pretty, not surprisingly, robust merch game. They've been around for 41 years. They know how to make some side dough. I was able to buy a little kid's shirt for my neighbors across the street because they saw me on my way out Sunday, and they're like, "Where are you going, Raffety?" They saw me toting my suitcase, getting in the Uber. I was like, "I'm going to Sundance." And they were like, "Whoa." And they're a great couple across the street. And one of them, the woman's like, "I think I went there a couple years ago. You got to tell us all about it." So we're going to go over there and recount some of this, I suspect, in the near future. Grab dinner with them. But I gave their kid a little Sundance t-shirt. I was going to get one for my wife, but I'm glad I didn't, because she even agreed. Yeah, she doesn't need any more t-shirts, It's not like we're... we are deficient in that category of clothing. So it was nice to bring back a little bit of a memento, support Sundance and their merch table for the good of the order. What else? Oh, Wednesday night I had dinner with Chris And Matt, one of the other fellows, he is a prolific dock maker, and Cavern Collective is the company that he runs or works for. And I'll drop links about Matt in the show notes as well. We had a great conversation, catching up, who you are, what do you do, why do you do it, how do you do it, just again, fun to connect with fellow freedom-oriented filmmakers in that way. Now, the weird thing that happened on Wednesday night, the tragic thing that happened, I got some text messages from colleagues, hey, did you hear about this plane crash at DCA? I was like, no, I hadn't even heard about it. I probably wasn't looped in fully until 8 o'clock. I think it happened around 7 or 8. But at my time, I'm 2 hours behind, so it must have been like 9 or 10 o'clock East Coast time. Bottom line is, we were just out having dinner. I wasn't paying attention. But I start to get some text messages. Hey, there was a plane crash at DCA. That's tragic. That's tragic. You hate to hear that type of news. But then some of these messages were saying, hey, the originating flight's from Wichita, Kansas. And that really, my heart sank. I mean, I work for an organization, Stand Together, whose founder, Charles Koch, is based out of Wichita, and so it's not surprising. There's a lot of traffic that staff that live out in that area, a lot of friends and colleagues of mine, and there's not an infrequent amount of traffic back and forth. People are going to Wichita, coming back to DCA. Those direct flights are very popular from Wichita. I mean, I was like, oh no, please. I really hope that no one in our philanthropic community is directly affected by this, and that just really another really unexpected twist to that week. So you talk about there's other things which are pale in comparison, the altitude sickness, maybe I'm catching a cold, I lost my identification, I can't get really good sleep, and then you get news like that, it just really throws you for a loop. And I was up communicating with some of my colleagues, and we're trying to track down information about who might have been on the flight or who wasn't on the flight, and cut to the chase. Thank goodness for our community, no employees or staff were involved in that tragedy. So my heart goes out to all those who lost loved ones, who are struggling and suffering. It was such a brutal thing, and of course more information comes out about that every day. Just a tragedy. And that evening I start to realize I bet DCA is going to be shut down for a considerable amount of time, maybe a day or two. It's going to throw all the flights going to DCA for a loop. So I kind of try to take the bull by the horns a little bit, and I reschedule my flight. So that kept me up pretty late. I was talking to Delta people, like, hey, what options do I have? Can I go back to Dulles instead of DCA? And I know there's going to be some cascading canceled flights, and people are going to have to get put on new flights, and then we're going to get pushed back. I just all these things were cascading, all these challenges and pressures were cascading. But I was able to rebook my flight, but I had to move it up a day, which kind of stunk. I didn't want to have to leave early, but I did, just because I thought it was the right thing to do. I wanted to get back, and frankly, I wanted to get back to the office. I wanted to get back on Thursday night so I could go into the office on Friday and just double check and touch base and make sure that things were going okay in light of this horrific tragedy. So that's a brutal way to end the week, but that's just the reality, man. That's what it was. My flight was rescheduled for Thursday late afternoon, so I had a little bit of time on Thursday morning, and I got to see my final film of the festival, a piece called Obex by an awesome, such an original filmmaker out of Baltimore named Albert Burney. Albert is awesome, dude. I've followed this guy's career for a while. I supported him, I think, on a Kickstarter campaign back in 2017 for one of his feature films called Silvio, which is about a monkey who sells insurance but has a chance opportunity to become a talk show host for a cable television show. It's so original, so crazy, so zany, so fun. Such a great positive message as well. I've just really loved him from the start. I believe he partners a lot with this other artist in that area called Kentucky Audley, maybe? Kentucker Audley. Bottom line, I think he runs No Budge No Budge, which I think is an outlet for low budget to no budget films on the internet. Super creative indie film genius in my mind. Obex, very original, very peculiar, and it's consistent with the previous works, Silvio being one, Strawberry Mansion being another one. I'll drop links to these in the show notes as well. You gotta check them out. But Obex is really clever and fun, and it's about a guy who's kind of lonely, lives with his dog, and kind of is I would call him somewhat agoraphobic tendencies. And he gets sucked into a video game. I don't want to give it away. I want to tell you to see it. It's original, it's clever, but he happens to get pulled into a high-risk, low-resolution video game, let's put it that way. It has got a lot of shout-outs to the 80s. Certainly, that was a huge influence. You can tell on the filmmakers, a lot of references to, for instance, Nightmare on Elm Street in the movie. That came up during our Q&A. I was disappointed that the director wasn't there, but one of the producers was there. And the question came up, how do you handle the rights to all those references to 80s pop culture? And she kind of gave us a sly grin. She just said, we work really hard to get those rights. We work really hard. So my friend Chris, who was there with me, my fellow MPI guest, we were like, that was a fun answer. I wonder if they have the rights to those things. I bet they do. I'm sure they do. They must. But even if they didn't, I think it'd be okay. Let people let it slide. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's broadly positive in terms of its acknowledgement of that franchise as influential on the artist's creation. So I don't know. It was just kind of a funny moment. We both looked at each other and said, "Yeah, that's kind of dodged that question a little bit." But that's okay, man. It was a great time. Great way to end the week. Obviously, still heavy heart tragedy on my mind with the plane crash, and just the next day having to go back to DC, and it's obviously something you start thinking about. Man, it could be anybody. It could be me. It could be you. It could be anyone that's flying any given time. And of course, that's not just unique to flying. It's anything, right? We often just live our day-to-day lives and take for granted the fact that we're healthy, that we're doing fine, that we're still alive and vibrant and thriving, and we get sucked down the day-to-day morass of despair and unhappiness when we should just be grateful for any second that we have where we're alive, And it just was a very moving thing to think about on that flight as it relates to my own creative ambitions, If we wrap it up here, I say, what an extraordinary week, a great experience. What most struck me about all these different films and artists I met is I don't want to say this in a way that suggests that I have any capacity to create great art. I don't know that I do. I might. But great or not, I definitely have the capacity to make it if I just put my mind to it. This is true for almost any ambition in life. Very few things prevent us from making progress on those dreams. Ultimately, a lot of those barriers are internal. They're not external. They're internal. They're your fears. Fears of judgment, fears of criticism, fears of disappointing others, et cetera, et cetera. And you start to think about that a little bit. And you go, if I really want to make a feature-length film, I could do it. Don't start. So it was very inspiring to be around those types of artists, to see those works and to realize there's not much that separates me from them other than the fact that they did it. Now that's a lot. I don't want to pretend that that's a small thing. The capacity, the will, the fortitude, the endurance, the tenacity to actually create and produce a feature film or even a short film of original quality that tells a story you want to tell. That takes courage, that takes gumption. So me saying, there's not much that separates us, that's not really a true statement. There's a lot. But in that margin, it seems like a little thing if you just say it that way. I could make a movie like that. But man, you got to get out there and do it. Don't just talk about it. so it just got me really motivated, thinking about stories I could write, stories I could tell. I've had all these ambitions or thoughts or ideas, and I keep dabbling and working on them here and there. I really want to continue making progress, and it was just, if anything, as I wrap it up, I'll say that week was just a great kick in the ass. I appreciate MPI for that, because that's the sort of thing where it can really look back on and say, you know, it was kind of a catalyst to productivity, a catalyst to creativity, a catalyst to progress. And me talking about it like that on this forum here is, I think, helpful too. It puts me out there a little bit. I know no one listens to this podcast. It's like, I don't know, 5-10 people maybe an episode. But if you are, you're a friend, you're a fan, you're someone I appreciate, I value, and I really do mean that. So thank you for being here, and hold me accountable to these ambitions. I think I have something to say. I think I can tell cool stories. I think I can make great shorts and features and all sorts of cool stuff. I just have to take the risk and put the time in, put the work in. Stop talking and start doing. So that's the plan, man. That's the plan. Coming back from Park City, my first ever Sundance. Hopefully I'll be many to come. And maybe one day, although it's outside shot, it's a real stretch. But why not? Why not imagine yourself premiering a film there someday? It's possible. It's unlikely, let's be honest. It's a reach. But you got to have those dreams to help motivate. And there's plenty of other great festivals I'd be happy to be in as well. And by the way, festival is not the end game. Doesn't matter. It's more about distribution. And frankly, it's more about just getting the opportunity to complete a project, to tell a story your way, to enjoy yourself, to have fun on this rock, man. You only get one spin. Make the most of it. Whew. Well, it is chilly, and it is late, and this episode has dragged on for a lot longer than I expected, but I'm grateful that you're here, despite the multiple interruptions, the meandering narrative that transpired. I'm grateful. Even my dog came out to say, Raffety, hey, it's time to come. It's time to go inside, man. It's time to go back inside. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Walk and Talk, all about my 2025 Sundance experience. I appreciate it very much. Hit me up with any questions, feedback, comments, concerns. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Looking forward to it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.